through the individual permit process, which we have only had to do a few times in all the years we've done this with the counties. So we are in the process with them, and that process typically they say 3 to 6 months. We started back in February here, so, and we're starting to make, I think, some headway with them. But so I'm hoping, I guess I'm just highlighting that to say should be the highest the wetland mitigation ends up being now, and we're trying to mitigate for almost all of it if we can potentially. I'm not promising though, so we gotta still count on that 142,000. I guess on the first page, the first thing that I think could be a potential savings is we had talked about cement treating this thing. If you look between the cement stabilized subgrade quantity and the Portland cement quantity, that's about 227,000. We could, I personally think we could probably axe that whole thing, because we're going to salvage at least 8 inches on average of what was reclaimed, and we'll put that back on top when the grade raise is done and the widening is done. We've got that figured into here, removing, relaying that blended base. So you're going to have a pretty good base to start with. I would love to still cement over the slough, which the slough is about a quarter of the project. So you could take that 227 and probably divide it by 4. Obviously, it's a smaller quantity. So let's say, yeah. So we could maybe save about 180,000, 170, 180,000 if we only cement stabilized over the slough. Would be my first recommendation of the savings. Any thoughts, I guess, with that to start? Or I can continue on with the other things I'm looking at. Riprap, we're at $420,000 worth of riprap. We 2 feet is your standard thickness for riprap over water. I think we could bring that down. I actually was planning to ask Brent on the phone this morning when we talked how much. We typically don't salvage that old rock.
We got a riprap pile right at the county.
You do?
A large pile.
So I wonder if potentially we just leave it at clay if you guys come back and or you know, buying it, obviously we still got to figure in. I mean, 70 bucks a yard is actually not that conservative anymore. I would say that's probably about what the going rate is going to be. So I'm not high on that.
The water board cleaned out drains, and they hauled in rock to the state shed, riprap rock.
Okay.
And we got a large pile of riprap rock right at Pheasant at the state shed. I would like you to look at it.
Sure.
But that's been sitting there for a couple years. And it would probably work great for this project.
Okay. And we could look at salvaging. Ken and I went back and forth about trying to salvage the rock that's out there. That's tends to end up almost being as expensive because it's so tedious for the contractor. So I don't know, maybe we can do a little bit of both. We could put a note in there that the riprap, we're going to have to quantify what you have, but we could have a note in there that the county will supply the riprap, so then I'll have to see what kind of bid item that is, but maybe it's just transport and install the riprap. We could save some money that way, I guess, potentially. I was also going to suggest maybe we just cut down the thickness. That thing really doesn't have a ton of wave action that I could.
No, I mean, there's windy days where it does splash onto the highways, but for the most part, it hasn't eroded away at the road shoulders.
So I'm thinking like at least we could cut down 1/2 foot, go to 1.5 feet, which would save 100,000 right there. And that's if we still bid out for them to get their own riprap. But if we could potentially, one thing the state does sometimes, they call it a state option. Like with Laurel, they do that too. We could do county option for riprap and say, hey, there's this riprap here that is potentially available, and that might drive the cost up a little bit. Whether they use it or not then is up to them.
This is a pretty clean pile. This was all separated and put into side dumps and then hauled into us. It was given to us.
Okay.
So, I mean, there is rock from this big to this big. I mean,
That's perfect. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You
You have
can't
an
miss it.
idea on how many truckloads?
Oh, gosh, a lot. I would say there's gotta be a couple hundred ton out there.
This sounds like a naive question now. Is that too big of a job for the county to do?
Well,
Could the county do this?
oh, haul the riprap out there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And
Well,
I'd have to pull some blade
eliminates-
guys.
That eliminates
I'd have to pull some blade
$420,000.
guys and we take our 3 trucks, tandem trucks and start hauling riprap
that
out
legal?
there.
Yeah.
You know, we load it into, you know, you pull a couple blade guys and you spend a day getting rid of the riprap pile at the station. We put our loader there, three trucks, 3 of our older dump trucks.
As long as it's not over
You know,
26,000 when you go across the bridge.
Yeah, yeah. We'll go on 30 all the way over and come in from Hamburg, but, you know, that would be something that the county could haul out. I mean, you're gonna have an excavator there pushing the rock. You know, I don't think we're gonna slow up the process by having 3 trucks show up with 15 ton at a time. You know, I mean, we'll be, 45 ton every time we come out with 3 trucks, and that's gonna allow us 45 minutes to go back into town and get back out there with trucks. You know, I mean, it's an option.
Well, that's something that can be done after they're gone.
Right, you can do that anytime.
It's just that
It's
trying
just-
to place it, you're gonna need an excavator rather than our little backhoe.
You just don't want to wait too long to get it
Yeah.
on that bank.
You need a track over it.
You're gonna need a track hoe to place it, which we don't have. You're gonna have to have a contractor, or towards the end of the project.
My point is, I think you could find one,
Oh, yeah.
haul it ourselves, and be money ahead versus the
Have,
$420,000.
Maddox Construction or Susag or whoever, Branch Finnick, whoever the county would hire, to have a track hoe out there for a day to place all the riprap.
Falls might even do that if they're available, but they're busy too.
And it would be something that we would wanna do right away when the project is done.
Right.
Which we're looking at a fall completion date. I mean, right, are we looking at what, October?
Yeah, if we can get this bid, I don't know if we're gonna get this bid in May anymore, dealing with the Corps.
Yeah.
I think.
Which
it might
means
end
we'd
up
be
being
looking at a completion
June.
date of 26,
November.
October,
Well,
November 26.
I'm hoping to get a bid the first week of June at the latest. We would have a contractor hopefully on site by the middle of August. I would say, I'd probably still be shooting for November 1
Of this year.
of this year. Yeah.
Which,
That dirt
Step
should be
1, I want you
close.
to look at what we have,
Yeah,
you know.
for sure.
If we got that available, that's a good thing.
It's a big chunk of the project there we could potentially avoid if you.
It was just something that was offered to me by the water board, and rock is not, they don't give rock away.
No.
It's like, bring it in.
No, it's hard to find
It's
it.
hard to find, so we got a fairly large pile.
What you're saying, a couple hundred ton though, is that what you?
Yeah, I would say they probably brought in 20 side dumps.
How much is required, Jason?
Well, at 2 feet, it's 6,000 yards. So you're talking at
180,000.
15 yards a truck. That's 40 trucks, I guess. 40 trucks.
You're
Obviously,
saying 2
we'd
feet,
have to
you thought
look.
you could reduce that down to a foot and a half, or less than that, right? The riprap?
We could easily go down to a foot and a half, which would take that 420 and turn it.
I haven't really looked at the pile, it's been there so long. I haven't-
The quantity would go
I
down to
I think
4,500
there's at least
yards.
30
Right.
tandem truckloads of riprap there, and that's 450.
Now, that would be 400 trucks.
Yeah, and we don't have that.
400? Oofed up. Yeah.
But we do have some.
But if we did, a foot and a half is more than enough, I think. That would be 300 truckloads, essentially, is what you'd be trying to look at.
So you're gonna dump this stuff off, dump it on the new pavement?
You dump it off the edge.
Yeah.
Shoulder.
Well,
Do the dump trucks
Here-
do that?
Side dump.
I should,
Oh, you're talking side dump.
Well, no, we dump riprap on the shoulder all the time with our tandem truck,
Okay.
back them up at
All right,
the
instead of.
I should add this too. Typically, if you bid this out, they're gonna put that riprap on before the paving contractor comes in, which is nice.
That would be a good
They
thing.
put down that blended base we already got, we'll put it back down, everything's packed into place, riprap's put in before they call in the paving guys. So that is the advantage then to having them handle that too. So then in that case, if we were to try to mirror that, then that would have to be done in short order.
Is it possible that if you're doing this, okay, and that if we don't have enough, okay, is it possible though that we can haul out what we have while they're doing this project?
Yeah, I mean, we
Or have them haul it out?
Either
Because
way.
you're not paying
Because you
the,
haul to a stockpile and then reassessed and things. The problem is, how do we bid it then? Because they're gonna wanna know, are we
exactly.
trucking it, are we still?
Yeah, that gets gray then as far as the bid.
Yeah, I
The
understand.
problem is when they don't know exactly what they're dealing with, the price goes up.
Mhm.
I mean, if they know we have to haul in, let's knock it down to 1.5 foot thickness, now we're at 4,500 yards. If they know we have to bring in 4,500 yards worth of riprap, and we are trucking it all in, we gotta place it all that, obviously the overall price goes down versus, well, we'll bring something in, we'll see how much we got.
Yeah, I understand.
You know, so.
Do you know if there's any up at Johnson's pit?
Well, there is a fine example of riprap, that whole pit is full of it, and it's 4 or 5 miles away from the project. But, you know, that we would have to talk to the two guys that are putting the product up in there, which would be Maddox and Kerry Tuesday.
And that's where a contractor's probably gonna get their rock. I would assume there's enough rock there.
Oh, there
for
is.
this project,
There's
so.
rock.
I mean,
So there's rock close, so maybe
Rock
that's,
close.
that's $70 a yard, maybe it does go down, but obviously it's an estimate, I'm trying to give you guys so.
Yeah, that.
You guys have maybe some time to think about these items too, because my plan originally was to bring the plan set, which I have here, and the estimate, and like I normally do, bring it all to you, and we're approving it, and away we go with a bid. We're not really ready for that yet anyways with the Corps of Engineers, so.
The decision though would have to be made at the May meeting, being you wanna try to go for the new bid, correct?
Yeah, well, we can bid this anytime. This is a county project. So you guys gotta figure out your dollars and everything. This can be bid anytime. It can be bid outside of a meeting, you know, this can be bid.
So earlier,
My concern is the price tag here is double.
exactly, because our prairie dog funds is less than what we expected. This is more than what we expected.
What got so expensive on here compared to?
Well, to be honest, prices are going up like crazy, but, I hadn't figured the mitigation into this at all, to be totally honest. That's extra. Cement treat, I know we talked about it, that's why I said, I added that in there because we discussed it, but I don't think that was included in my original. And $420,000 worth of riprap, I think that was a bit more. Well, and then borrow, we got $500,000 worth of borrow, which I think we estimated about 30,000 yards, and we've got 45,000.
The price is only gonna go up the longer we wait, but the situation that we're in, that road could stay the way it is for another year. And
With our stuff, the more we can pare down on this, the more doable it will be.
I wish I could tell you I could knock some of these, knock this overall price down. When we got to the end of this, I was like, good lord, this is way out of the price range we were at, but I don't really know what else that we could take out, to be honest. I mean, the cement is definitely the first item I had on there, and then the riprap would be the other thing to figure out.
well, obviously, if this was put to bid, I'm assuming that, okay, you got 2.1 and it gets put to bid in June and it comes in at 1.7 or it comes in at 2.2, the commissioners also have the right to reject the
Well,
bid, correct?
yeah.
If it's over the bid, it's pretty easy to reject it. If it's under the or over the estimate. If it's under the estimate, it's very difficult
Then you gotta have a really good reason.
to reject. So,
Well, and you would.
Isn't money a reason?
Well, not if it comes under your bid though.
Oh, yeah,
That's what he's saying.
I mean, that's a question for state's
it's under
attorney.
the estimate though.
But I know we ran into this where Bonneville County did this a few years ago where estimate was, I think it was a smaller job, I think it was 800,000, and they said, well, we'll probably only have 600,000 to spend on this. Let's hope it comes in at that. It came in right about the estimate, and they were hoping to just clear it out, and they couldn't. They had to spend it, so.
And we gotta, this isn't the end of it here, and this doesn't include engineering,
Correct.
so add another 150 grand.
We were originally thinking like, what, 950?
So it'd be a million bucks basically.
I thought $1 million, now it's double, better.
I think the last time I came, not to make excuses for our estimate, because it was way too low, but I had written down 1.2 to 1.3, like, that's what I had written down. But I think originally when we started this project, we were hoping to keep it around $1 million.
Under, yeah, a million or under.
But costs are going up fast, like borrow,
What's the borrow excavation again?
it's the dirt coming in.
The dirt coming in.
Yeah.
Adding on to the grade.
It's the clay that comes in to widen and raise that grade. So, and yeah, for the
How many
borrow.
yards are you having for that?
Lots, 45,000.
45,000 yards. So if we drop it a foot from where it's at, which is not any higher than we had hoped to raise it, I guess. That last approach, we essentially shot that elevation, and that's the elevation we kept across. So, but if we drop it a foot from that elevation, it was about 8,000 yards we would save. So it was roughly around, it was roughly around 90,000.
Or 90, yeah, 90, yeah.
Was the savings.
So how much are you
And that's
raising?
the only savings we can really have lowering the grade over the slough is the dirt, because you're still gonna have, the same amount of pavement, the same amount
Right.
of removing relay, everything else stays the same.
So with this, how much are you raising the grade?
It's about 2.6 feet at the most, is all it is, so it's really.
Didn't at our last meeting, I'm an outlier here, didn't we talk about an option and not raising it at all? Because it's
Well,
still never
for
option.
mitigation, we were trying, we talked about not raising it for the mitigation, the 3 acres of mitigation, because raising it.
Well, with the
Yeah.
cost too, because
Right.
now everything's,
And I did look at, I looked at raising it only a foot, I guess, was what I believe you guys discussed. That's what Kent had in his notes, was instead
Remember
of raising it, it was raising
And
it.
it had to do with litigation.
Yes.
well, I
remember
remember, the
that.
more you raise it, the more you gotta mitigate because the road gets wider.
That's
So
why we,
the mitigation, so there's 1.69 acres, the majority of that is over the slough now, because we're moving the ditches to decrease that mitigation by 1.4 acres from the 3.09 we had. I dropped it all the way down, we still had 1.1 acres, I brought it up a foot, we were still at 1.2 acres. So the only savings was, it would be at roughly a half an acre we could save potentially of mitigation by not bringing it up. But to me, I guess my thoughts, my recommendations is that if we're not gonna raise this road, then there's probably no point in even doing this project. You may as well just put pavement back on the thing and let it be the way it is. I mean, the point is to get it out of the water, get it wide enough to where you don't have to look at it anymore. You don't have to worry about the shoulders or anything like that. I personally don't think it's really even worth doing the project if we don't raise the road up.
So where does we've always heard about, and I don't know whose jurisdiction this is, and I don't know if we have to pay attention to it, but we're always talking about the 500-year flood and the 1,000-year flood and all this stuff in projects. Does that apply here?
Yeah, we looked very briefly at the hydraulics, not to the point of a hydraulic study, but we did look at the
I'm
hydraulics.
just curious.
Going up to the elevation that I've got it right here on this estimate, we're still only at like a 75-year event. So we're not even to the 100-year, which you're only required to be above a 25-year.
Okay.
But
I was just curious.
I guess I say that to say you're still not fully up and out of the water even by raising it. Right now that.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, that road is very minimally above what it has to be at right now. So,
Since 93.
I mean, what are your thoughts? You and I haven't totally talked about this, but I just think, why do the job if we're not raising? Because the dirt cost, it looks like a lot, but in the whole scheme, changing that grade around the slough is only a percentage of that because we're still widening the road throughout. We're trying to get nice wide 4-to-1s everywhere. So some of that dirt stays. It's not like you can eliminate all the dirt just by not raising the road essentially. So,
Well, that water's been there since 93, since we got wet. To my knowledge, it's never gone over the road, but it's eroding the road and it's nonstop soft spots, the highway. There's reasons why there was such thick asphalt there. It was just
Right.
patch after patch after patch. And if it comes to spending $1 million or spending $2 million, and obviously I'm not in charge of the checkbook, but realistically, if you're going to do a project like this, it would be my suggestion that you do it in right rather than a Band-Aid. But obviously, we're talking about a lot of money. I mean, it's going to be, even if we just pave over it, it's going to be a problem area for a long time.
5 years down the road, it's
10 years down the road.
5 years, it's gonna be
You know, I
road
mean,
away.
it's just, yeah, I mean, so the logic thing is to build the road up through there, to try to get, to get it out and do it proper, but, that's just my opinion.
There's not much traffic on that road, of course.
Yeah, if this was 10 years ago, we wouldn't even, yeah, I mean, and it's only getting more.
Right,
and more, I mean, and they keep expanding on both ends, and they, we
I
got.
think we all agree with that. I think the problem lies is that when we had set aside money to do this.
Right.
we struggled.
Yeah.
So therein lies the problem.
I think we gotta table this for now and give us a month to think about it, and it's too big of a decision to make today. I mean, we're talking about $1 million
Extra.
Difference.
$1.5 million.
extra, I'm saying.
Yeah, with
No,
engineering
throw in
fees too.
engineering.
Well,
Now it's
I'm-
2.5
I'm
million.
rounding and trying to sound optimistic.
well, and, I mean, it is $220,000 worth of cement treat, it is $420,000 worth of riprap. If that goes out, now you've just dropped it by $650,000 roughly, so that 2.1 now gets, or 2.7 gets to 1.6 million, which is still over the budget, I guess, but
Right,
there are potential savings there.
right.
Just for the sake of information, what would just blocktopping it cost?
Well, we have it here, I guess.
To know that figure.
357.
Well,
Raising it, you mean?
Yeah.
it's not 357, it's 357, 202, 960, and then you'd have mold. I'd say 700,000. When you add the mold and the little
Right,
bit of
you
gravel
gotta
and
add
things like that.
Third card.
Right, about a third.
Somewhere between 600,000 and 700,000, so about a third of the cost are paid.
And then the problem is we've got problems down the road again, but, I mean, of course, it's been dry, and the way it is now, ground up, it's looking good.
So when you say just paving it, does that still figure in the riprap?
No.
Okay, so you just about gotta do that.
Just an overlay.
I know, but you just about gotta put some riprap or you're gonna be eroding.
You're gonna be back to square one.
Well, there's riprap there. When you raise the road, now you have a foot and a half, you don't have riprap, and that's why you're adding riprap, so.
You put 6 inches of pavement through there, and what you got now, you
This
still
is
got
only,
to put
this is
that.
only 4 inches paved.
Four.
They probably don't miss enough with
Which I wanted to do 5 inches of pavement here, we talked about 5 inches, I already took that down to 4 just because of the cost, so.
Should be packed fairly good now, or not?
We'll be
I
bladed
would
up
hope so.
tomorrow.
Huh?
I'm gonna blade it tomorrow.
It's held up though pretty darn well, right? It's-
There's one spot there that gets kind of goofy, ain't there?
Yeah, and
Maybe
the
one or
frost
two.
isn't out yet.
Right.
You
One
know,
or two
so,
bad spots is all.
You know, last year at this time, we were starting to grind it. We were grinding it in April.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it's been about a year since we ground it, and then we had all that moisture come up and it was soft. Now, the road being on it with the truck plowing the blade this past week, obviously there's no soft spots on it, it's because there's a lot of frost there yet. Only time will tell if it gets soft again.
Yeah.
Right.
What are your wishes, guys?
Be my recommendation.
Table?
Table it a month and think about it.
And since you guys are probably gonna have plenty of conversations, I'll again look back at if we do no grade raise and we just try to widen the road, exactly what that would be and bring that, or even maybe try to get it to you guys before.
Next month's meeting.
Next month's
Yeah.
meeting. To see what that is.
Yeah.
If we do just a widening, take away or just a straight widening, so we're not lifting the road at all, but we're widening all the way through that stretch, and then everything else that goes along with that. I would say that's gonna be the big cost of it, like riprap is a question mark and things like that, but that would be more in the 1.4, 1.5. I think the grade raise itself, with the riprap, that's in that $500,000-$600,000 range. So I guess it's possible to leave it down where it is, and I'll get a better number for that.
I think if you could do that for us, yeah, that'd be something we'd be.
I fear that we're not protecting the road if we leave it the way it is.
Thing is, it's been this way a long time,
But it also.
but it's not the
fell
best.
The
apart.
thing is, what Jason's proposing is a great and good idea.
Absolutely.
The downside is, if you can't pay for something, it's a moot point.
Yes.
And I'm not saying we can't, I'm just saying that's what we're gonna have to weigh out.
Yeah.
So if you raised it and paved it or just paved it, can we wait a year to haul the riprap in? Would that be a smart move or not? I might just mean.
If there's
deferring
no
cost.
widening done and we just pave on what's there, then the rock can just.
No, but if you raised it a foot or something and
Oh.
waited for the riprap, the county could
Then
do
we're
it.
back to this, though.
Right,
You're saying, can we wait a year to put the rock in?
yeah.
I don't.
Can
You don't want
can
it.
we as a county do that?
You could,
Can, but-
there's these erosions in the meantime.
I realize
Yeah,
that, I
you got a
understand that.
track hole and new pavement, you got.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I'm just,
Well, it's a good thought, but we'd have to get
Right.
that.
I'd rather see the riprap go on before the pavement. Definitely.
Yeah,
And I mean, if it's done right, it shouldn't be done that new pavement a whole lot if you guys decide we have to wait financially to do
Right.
anything. But I would be concerned about erosion big time. That would
You
be-
don't, yeah.
I know that it doesn't get too bad a wave action, but if they have no rock on it,
Oh
that
my,
makes it
yeah, you
mistake.
get.
Oh, that would be
You're not
very
gonna-
good.
One thing that happens in North Dakota, you can count on it, the wind's gonna blow.
Absolutely.
should have windmills in.
There you go. Don't even start. Don't even.
Well, I guess that's where we're at, Jason, it's just.
I wish I had better news for
Yeah.
them.
I know.
I apologize. The estimates have gotten a little out of control because the prices have gotten a little out of control, so things are tending to go this direction. I hate to say they're probably gonna continue doing that,
But I'm sure.
you wanna discuss that POA at all?
The bridge scour, so I spoke to Jason, Dan got an email, I got an email, and I wasn't really sure what it was, but after speaking with Jason, so there's 8